Okay guys, here is a sample problem for sex-linked traits because a lot of you guys have asked me to do a walkthrough so that you guys can see step by step how to do a sex-linked trait problem, or maybe you're just studying for your quiz tomorrow and you're wondering how you can do one. So I'll go through this really simply and really quickly so as not to waste much of your time. So as you can see in front of you, the problem is in humans, hemophilia is a sex-linked trait. Females can be normal carriers or have the disease. Males will either have the disease or they won't, but they will not ever be carriers. Because males cannot carry a sex-linked trait because of the Y chromosome, and they only have one X chromosome, whereas females have two, which allow them to be a heterozygous genotype, and the males will not be. So the problem is to show the cross of a man who has hemophilia with a woman who is a carrier. So before you start, you always need to first create your key. Okay, if you look over to the right here, I've created the key over here. My mouse is circling it. Should have a little yellow dot on it, so you can follow that around, because that's what I'm going to use to point, because I can't really write on my screen, because I'm not that high-tech. Somewhat high-tech, but not that much. So if you look at the top portion, I've written out all the female genotypes along with their phenotypes. And you have the homozygous dominant phenotype right here, which is a non-hemophilic female because hemophilia is a sex-linked trait and it is sex-linked recessive, meaning it's going to be on the X chromosome and it's going to be a recessive trait. So we start with that one. In your sex-linked traits, you will always have the same key. You can just change the little alleles, which are the little letters that are in the superscript next to the X's and Y's. So the second one is our heterozygous genotype, and this is the genotype where we have carriers. So this is known as a carrier genotype because the female has the recessive trait, but do they show it in their phenotype? The answer would be no, they do not, because she is still non-hemophilic, or she has normal blood. If you remember from our genetic disorders discussion from last week, hemophilia is where your blood does not clot or takes a very long time to clot. So we then move on to our third female, and this one is a double recessive or homozygous recessive. So we have a hemophiliac female. And then we move on to our males, which is basically you can either have the trait or you can't. You can see that the carrier genotype in the females right here is our third genotype, whereas the males do not have a third genotype because there's nothing on the Y chromosome. They don't carry an allele there. Therefore, it cannot get covered up. So once you've created your key, you can go and look at a Punnett square because our cross, if you remember correctly, was to show the cross of a man who has hemophilia with the cross of a woman who is a carrier. So what we've done is we always put the female genotype on the top of the Punnett square. We always put the male phenotype, or genotype, on the left-hand side of the Punnett square. This way your males will all be on bottom, your females will be on the top row, and you can pretty much always have it that way so that you don't ever mess it up and you don't ever get it confused. So our carrier female is going to be up here. We have a capital H to represent the dominant trait. We have a lowercase h to represent the recessive trait. So she is a carrier. We have our hemophilic man over here. And we can go ahead and do our cross. So we bring this X and this X together, and that gives us a carrier female. That's the first offspring. Then we bring our X from dad and our X from mom, and it gives us a hemophilic female, which is somewhat rare because it's hard for females to get genetic disorders or sex-linked disorders because they have to have two recessive traits, and that doesn't happen very often because most disorders are recessive. So then we'll move down over here. We'll bring our Y over here. You'll notice that dad can only give a Y to his sons because that is going to determine what sex they are. And so we have a dominant male, so that one will be non-hemophiliac. And then we bring our Y from here and our X from here, and that means that we will have hemophilia over here. So you'll see that your males have a 50-50 shot of having whatever genetic trait you're tracking or tracing, because they can inherit their Y from dad, and then they're getting the X allele from mom. There's only one choice over here that we have. Okay? There are several questions that can also be asked about like percentages and fractions and stuff that you've seen on your worksheets. And so here's an extra question for you. How many children will have the disease? In this particular cross, we're going to have 2 of our total offspring. So 2 out of 4, or 50%, will have hemophilia, so these 2 right here. And then 50% will not, while we will have 1 carrier. Hopefully that helps you understand how to work out a sex-linked trait. This is supposed to be really simple. It's supposed to be really straightforward. If you are having issues, come see me before school tomorrow or during tutorial. Actually, we have an assembly during tutorial, so you will have to come see me before school or in between classes. So I hope this helps, guys, and as always, keep calm and maintain homeostasis.